All right, we're recording fresh. You're
Woo!
on, sir.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for joining us today. This thing is usually done at the NHC, but since that was a giant dumpster fire and COVID is killing everything, literally and figuratively, that we're just going to have this here. Basically, it's just a place to get together for everybody to get an update of what's going on in the BGC. Totally. Um, most of the directors will get updates. Some couldn't be here, so we have other people talking. It's not a live question and answer session. We probably will have some time at the end, so feel free at the end. This is being recorded. Also remember that your little private chats, like the little typey ones, aren't private. It's gotten a lot of people into trouble, like business-wise, lately. And please don't be poor Jennifer on the Zoom call. If you don't know what poor Jennifer is, just Google poor Jennifer and you'll see exactly who poor Jennifer is. Poor Jennifer. I'm just going to start with a few general points of just random questions that I have gotten that I can answer, and then we'll get to kind of just a list of things. There was got two complaints. One telling me it was egregious and bordering on unlawful to have it at this time, and the guy was fluorescently upset. He was from Washington because didn't I think about the people on the West Coast time? And I did, but I don't care because I'm up, I'm hungover, and it's 8 o'clock here. We have the entire world now. We've got a whole lot of people in Asia and Australia and New Zealand that would never get to be a part of this. I mean, it's still really late there. It's 11 o'clock there. So, I mean, I feel for the people that had to get up at 6 if they wanted to watch this, but this is all recorded. But we really want to be more inclusive for all these other people in the world to get it at least. I don't know why you'd want to get up and watch this because it's recorded, but here we are. I had just a general question on undertrained and outdated judges. This has been going on since I've been a part of the Bgcp, since it's been around. Basically, they mean older judges that have a higher rank. Let's just say national, that don't keep themselves updated and trained, and try to use their rank as kind of a not bully, but kind of you should completely listen to them. The issue becomes is it's a competition issue, not a Bgcp issue. So if you have judges like that, you have to be mindful that you got to talk to your competition organizers and such. There's nothing you can do about a judge that doesn't want to learn and knows everything, other than just know who they are and just kind of try to avoid them and take everything with a grain of salt. But it's more of a competition thing, which an awful lot of these questions are. Also, when it comes to studying and such, and when you have materials that are translated in whichever language, it doesn't matter, that didn't come directly from us, or from the Bgcp, I should say, that those translations, that's fantastic, use them. But if they're not verified, any errors in there that you pass on still count as errors on your exam, even though you are correct that you put the thing that was translated wrong down. Just be mindful that anytime you have a translation, or just anytime you do your own notes and you transpose it incorrectly, that it's very important that whatever you wrote down doesn't mean it's correct. Again, back to the Bgcp competition thing. The Bgcp does not run competitions at all. The vast majority is, so I got maybe 60 questions. I would say half of them were involving basically competition questions. Like, why doesn't the Bgcp decide to do this with the styles? Why doesn't the Bgcp do that with the styles? Most of it is competitions. Do not confuse the guidelines with competition categories. As a competition organizer or somebody entering competitions, you can put to them saying, hey, you feel free to group hoppy things. They don't have to be the same style. I mean, most smaller competitions group a whole lot of things. I mean, Bruce and I run some of the largest competitions in the US, and we have to break out our styles. So we'll have, like 4 different IPAs as their own style, but a lot of other smaller places, let's say you have 200 entries, you're going to group all your pale ales and your IPAs and maybe hoppy lagers together. So that's not a guideline thing. That's a competition thing. There are a whole lot of smaller competitions that don't really know what's going on. So if you ever want to, if anybody ever has a question about like how to run a competition efficiently and not anger people, first thing you do is just tell everybody what you're doing up front, and second thing you do is try to do your best. But just give us a shout out. There's a lot of questions about virtual help. I mean, how do you get it? Same thing. There's some individuals that are kind of focusing on trying to get the virtual competition down. It hasn't really been to my liking anywhere good yet, but I think it's going to be the way of the future for a little bit. And there's a question on web-based, like a form or something. At the GABF, we're it was supposed to turn completely over to all digital, but then they couldn't get the Wi-Fi working, which is hilarious. So everything went back to paper. But I made a little Google form out of our score sheet basically, and I can put that up on the education training site. So Bruce, remind me to do that, and then we'll just share it to everybody. And it's just a simple thing that you can save to your Google Docs, just to make it simple. It doesn't have to be specific for competitions, but you can use it for judging anything you want to do. And when it comes just to straight COVID and stuff like that, when you're running your competitions, think about the long-term changes that, and we're not just talking about social distancing stuff. We're just talking about what you can do most to be more mindful of people's health and everyone knows that has been in a competition. There's a lot of unhealthy people, I would say, that are in the major cohort of the people that are getting this and being unhealthy. So just think ahead. So okay, now let's move on directly to the itinerary. So Gordon, is your microphone? Are you mic'd up there, Big Chief? So basically,
Yeah.
we're gonna do. Gordon's gonna just give a little overview, and then we're gonna go down a list for the directorates and such. So Gordon, you want to give a little overview, and I have some questions for you after that people have sent in. Just for now, Gordon, just do the general BGCP stuff, and we'll get to the specifics later. Ready to go?
Yeah, okay. Welcome, everybody. Sorry we can't do this in person. We continued to grow last year. We're active actually now in 61 countries, 13,000 plus judges, more than 7,300 active at the end of last year. Because of the growth, we finally were able to create 3 international regions to have the members in from those areas rather than arbitrarily lumping them into the Northeast as they were. Remember back when the program started, I mean, we just had a handful of international judges. So since we started international outreach,
Speaking of that, Gordon,
has grown quite a bit. Go ahead.
Any of the participants from not the United States, just give a thumbs up or give a clap or give a whatever, just to indicate, or just a wave. I mean, there's only like 6 of you. Maya's one. Francesca one. Excellent. I saw Kathy here. She's Canadian, so she'll definitely want to not be counted as the U.S. right now. Go ahead, Gordon. Keep going. Right, Kathy? Of course.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gordon. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm pleased with the amount of growth that we have in those areas. I'm not sure exactly how people are being sort of put to work in competitions. I'm not sure competition infrastructure is like what we see in the U.S., where there's more than a competition a day here, which is good. But I think there's room for people to have more competitions worldwide. Last year we launched the CIDR program. We got the new regions defined, like I said. We did some work with data privacy on what information on judges we hand out to people in competitions. We had some requests from people in the EU to look at their data privacy regulations and try to be as compatible with them as possible. So we did make some changes there, but for the most part,
So that was one of the questions.
We don't sell our data. We don't co-market with anybody. So we give it out for BGCP purposes. So, I'm sorry if you receive an email somewhere from somebody that you don't want. Welcome to my world. Go ahead.
So there was a specific question from a judge in California that's also a lawyer. So this is going to be fun. because they're fun. It was basically the GDPR stuff in California now says you are not allowed to send any personal information without the okay out, which I didn't know. And they're saying it's in violation, not angrily, they were saying to let us know that any like group email is in California is a violation of this new personal data law. And it was just to be brought to everyone's attention. We could go way more into that, but I know we did stuff with the EU, so I think it was more along the lines of that they wanted to make sure that we were mindful of that, right? Because I think this one in California is way more stringent than the EU one is even.
We're a membership organization, and consent is implied when you join the organization. A membership organization that can't communicate with its members doesn't really serve a whole lot of purpose. So we limit how data is used. I mean, we've had a privacy policy for 15 plus years that talks about how we use the data. And when I reviewed, after the European laws went into effect, I reviewed our policy, and I saw that we didn't really need to make any changes because we weren't ever trying to make money off of it. So I don't know. What we did do is we looked at the data fields that we were furnishing to competitions so they could invite judges, and we removed certain personal data from that, probably because in the past we handed out data and people would get invitations in the mail. Now they get invitations by email. So knowing where exactly you live, we basically removed the contact methods that people have stopped using in the last 10 years. So yes, we do hand out names and emails and locations so that judges can learn about events in their area. So,
all right, Gordon. The biggest question that I got, and rightfully so, is about COVID and the lack of being able to keep up on your status as a judge. And there's many, actually, like 15 people like very upset, or not upset, concerned about lapsing in their judging.
Yeah. We posted an announcement on the web that said for the duration of COVID, at least until the end of this calendar year, when we'll take a look at it again, we've suspended all processing of lapsed judges. So people shouldn't have to worry that they're going to go inactive. But in any event, people really shouldn't worry too much about like lapsing, because that doesn't mean you cease to be a judge. That doesn't mean we like flush your record and all.
Gordon, define that, right? Because people don't understand that. People don't understand what it means if you lapse.
Yeah. So we also have this on the website. Explaining.
Yes, but we're here, and you have a mustache, so explain.
Yes. So when you lapse as a judge, that means we take you off the active roster of judges. So when we hand out data to competitions, your name's not on that list. Your record is still in our system, and if you do something judginess related, if you show some activity, then we mark you as active again automatically. So it's just kind of like a voluntary pause in your status. We have several statuses. Most people are active, which means you've done something in the last 2 years. But those things don't get sort of set automatically. I process all of those anyway. So being inactive just means we don't hand out your name on the list, so you don't get bugged for going to competitions. And there are other sort of active membership things like voting and some other programs that apply to active judges that you're not in, but we still keep your records. So when you actually show some activity, it's not like we require you to retest to become active again. It's just a database flag. Field goes from lapsed to active, and then boom, you have all the rights and privileges of a full member.
You don't get expunged.
So, yeah, you don't. And even if somebody says, "That's it, I'm done with you people, I'm out," I mean, we still don't delete your record. I mean, we mark you as something like resigned. I mean, we have a different field. With the same field, we'll also mark like if someone passes away. We set it to deceased, and then your next of kin doesn't get competition invitations and such. So people don't have to worry about like having to start over if they become lapsed. So it's a temporary inactive field. That said, since people are concerned about this, we didn't really change any of our policies. We just sort of said, okay, extraordinary circumstances, we're going to just hit the pause button on processing these things. And then when we start it up, we'll let people know. But, I said we're not even going to look at it the rest of this year. Any other questions on that?
Are you? No, good for that, man. Good for that. All right, so I think one more question, just a general question. There's been a few people asking about a Bgcp bookstore. Basically, I know the answer to this, but I want you to state why. That we don't buy books and have a bookstore and sell books. Like basically the body of knowledge, the stuff that we know that are really good books, why aren't we selling them? Does that make sense, Gordon?
Amazon?
Yeah, I know that. But there's been a lot of people asking why don't we have our own little bookstore, kind of like Siebel does and kind of like the master brewers do.
So you can buy my
Are you gonna try to
book?
hawk? Oh my God!
Well, that's why we
You're
don't.
trying to hawk
That's
your
why
book.
that's why we don't have it.
Got it.
If you want to buy a book, go buy a book. There's other people do that. I mean, it's not in our mission statement to be a bookstore. We have the style guidelines, and we don't sell those. I mean, yes, they cost money if you want to if you want to pay somebody else to print it for you and send it to you instead of printing it yourself. You get charged for that, but we don't make any money on that. We don't. We're a nonprofit organization, so we give away our data or our intellectual property for educational purposes. We still retain the copyright to things, so people can't take it and turn around and say this is mine and I'm going to sell it. But we don't need to do that, and it's not like we need another source of income. So there are places where you can buy books, and that is in their mission statement. So go ahead, go buy books. I love books,
especially your.
Yeah, and I'm amazed. to show you that that isn't in my self-interest, you know, I just told you to go buy books on Amazon. I mean, as an author, that's the worst thing that you can tell somebody to do, because like if you buy a book on Amazon, authors get basically nothing. So there's that.
So Gordon, would you suggest, so for general contacts to the BGCP, would you suggest that people from whatever region would reach out to their own regional rep?
Well, it depends on what they want to what to find out about. I mean, that's never the wrong answer. Sometimes the job of a regional rep is to help their members understand who they should be talking to. But members don't have to go through their regional rep to talk to people. If they've got a question on exams or competitions or education or communications, they can certainly reach out to any of the directors. I mean, that's why we put their names and contact information on the website, so that, you know, people can contact them directly. I mean, I get all sorts of questions from people, and very few of them are actually regional questions. They're just sort of general program questions, and probably 3/4 of the questions that I get, I immediately turn around and forward, usually to Dennis. Yep.
Let him for it.
Well,
And also for
there are things like, I forgot my password, can you reset it? Yeah, we've got an email address for that, and you know, Dennis probably has somebody that does that. So, you know, the email probably gets forwarded 6 times, and yeah, we prefer people go directly to you know, the responsible person. But if you don't know who's responsible for whatever it is that you have you know, a need for, sure, regional rep is not the wrong answer. That doesn't mean the regional rep can solve it for you, but their job is to help you find the way to use BJCP services properly.
Excellent. Let's move on a little bit, Gordon. We're gonna you can mute yourself for a little bit. We're gonna go to Al. Al, you ready there, Big Tuna?
Yep.
Al's our finance person. So Al, take it away.
All right. I'm going to share my screen here. I've got the annual report from 2019 up first. If I can find it. There it is. Everybody see that? Chris, can you see that?
Yep, good to go.
All right. See you, Bruce. All right. So what we do, the way we structure the budget is basically the bottom line budget is last year's for income is last year's income. So this is the amount we took in income in 2018 was $110,604. And then we say, okay, we're going to assume that's how much we make next year also. So we put the 2019 income budget is actually the numbers from 2018. That's what we took in 2018. So BJCP exam fees, that's all exam fees, written exam fees, beer, cider, mead, online exam fees all together. Contest certification fees, I think everybody understands that. Merchandise receipts, we don't, as Gordon just said, we don't really sell anything anymore, so that's not there. We haven't received any interest from PayPal in years, so that's that. Item E is miscellaneous income. We get some money from the AHA for a web banner that we run on our web page, excuse me, that says become an AHA member. And if somebody does that and clicks on that through our website, then they pay us for that. We do have a savings account, so that's amount of interest taken in 2018. Siebel flavor kits, that's money we make from selling Siebel flavor kits. That again, that's income received. That's not necessarily, as Gordon said before, we don't make a profit on it. It's just income we received from selling Siebel flavor kits. Oh, I guess I lied. Online exams, we broke that out separately. So up above where I said That includes all exams. Online exams is separate. We have a grader incentive program, and that's with the AHA. If you help us grade, the BJCP will pay you a certain stipend for meeting a certain level of exam sets graded, I should say. And then the AHA, if you show up at the National Homebrew Con and judge there, then the AHA will match that amount. So that's the amount we took in from the AHA for that program. And Bjcp AHA reception in 2018, we had one, and that's the amount of money we took in for that. So moving down to expenses. We used to pay the AHA for having a, basically for them listing our competitions in Zymergy. We don't do that anymore, so that's that. We have a Bjcp Grant, which is available to people. If they have a program, they can submit it to the vice president, and she has a committee. They discuss that. Continuing that program. So these are all amounts that are slated for expenditures. This is what the directors have available for them to expend during any given year. I guess I don't want to go over all of these individually because there's a lot of them. And this is posted on the website also. So if you have questions on this, you can look it up on the website, and you can reach me, Al Boyce, at Comcast.net. That's ALBOYCE. If you have specific questions on this, then I can go into detail on these items. One thing, moving back to income, you notice the 110,604, that was the amount that we had estimated we would take in. We actually did not take in that amount. Let's see, how do I get rid of this? Ooh, did not want to do that. Really big numbers. Zoom to, here we go. Not 583%. Try that. So in the to date category, that's the amount of money that we actually took in 2019, 93,000 versus 110. So in 2020, that 93 would become the amount that we target that we will take in for 2020, and that becomes the amount that we will be able to spend in 2020 also. In 2019, there's that number again, 110, but we actually only spent $79,261. I thought some of you might be interested in this. Comparisons from year to year, especially the items I have in red and highlighted in pink here are directly COVID related. Our balance right now, you see, is less than it was at the beginning of the year, and that's because we are doing all these refunds for contests, and we're taking in a lot less cash from exams. We had 39 exams canceled so far this year. We had 88 contests refunded. Even given that, I'm impressed that our balance still is only about $1,000 under. So COVID is not really an issue for us right now in terms of being able to remain solvent. We do have a healthy reserve fund, as you see, $208,000 right now. That is going up. That's only going up because of interest. I have not added anything to that reserves fund. Basically, when we get over $15,000 in the checking account, I take some of that money out and put it into the reserves fund. And that does get an interest rate. The other thing that I track is competitions and exams. And it's kind of interesting that in 2018, we had 536 US exams. We had originally scheduled 400 exams in 2019 in the US. Right now, it's down to 285, and other nations are at 142. You'll see the same thing happening down in exams, where nations other than the US are starting to be a larger percentage of our income than the US. And there's statistics there on a number of beer, mead, and cider exams given for each of those years, and how many actual examinees in those total exams. And barring any questions, I'm done.
Super. Thanks, Al. If we have questions, we'll come back to you. Come
All
back
right.
to you at the end. Thanks, buddy. All right, Houseman, you still there?
Still here?
Excellent. You want to give a little quick blurb about competition stuff or anything, maybe COVID related or anything you got to talk about?
Well, I think a lot of it Al summed up with, in the first half of the year, we did not stick to the cancellation policy. So if somebody just forgot to cancel or postpone a competition, we refunded that. To prevent that, a lot of them I posted off into December or next year if they knew they were postponing it, and then they can change the date. So it's free to change the dates on competitions as long as you do it before the competition date. But as of July 1st, we're back to the cancellation policy. Everybody should now know that there was COVID or is COVID, and that if they're not going to have their competitions, they should have planned ahead by now and let us know to either they're going to have it or they're going to postpone or they're canceling. So pretty much things been running normal. Other than that, any specific questions I'll be glad to address.
No, man, nothing. Just wanted to it was the COVID questions. There was a zillion of them, and that was Al. Gordon got some, Al got most, and then you got the rest. That's pretty much. Thanks, bud.
Okay.
All right, Gordon, back to you there. IT questions. There was very long questions, so I kind of just tailored them. One of them was about the course webs that we have. The French lady emailed in saying, because they're online exam limits in various languages and they can't take the language or the exam in their language because of course webs, have we addressed that? Because apparently we're only allowed so many different exams online, and that would mean we couldn't have all of the languages. Or does that make sense?
The question makes sense. I don't know why that company has that limitation. That's basically an exam directorate thing to solve. I know that's something like Sarah has been investigating of what to do. I mean, it's not like you can just sort of like throw a switch and like be on a different service. So I don't know if they're trying to find a different thing to use, or if they're trying to work with a company to expand languages. But
well, I think that's enough,
that she's looking
Gordon.
into.
She was just basically, are we trying to address it? And the answer is yes. Sarah's looking into it, and we'll do what we can.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that we had such a limit when it was originally set up. The person who set it up didn't tell us there were any limits. So, that was something we discovered, I guess, when we hit them.
Next question for you, Gordon. We have money. Can we hire a website manager? This person says the website's a black hole. It needs to be done and updated. And when can we move from the dev site to the the bgcp.org site?
Well, the site migration is essentially finished. This year, we had done a physical migration from our hosting provider. We changed hosting providers. The service we're getting wasn't good enough performance for what we were trying to do. So we researched and found somebody else to be able to host it, and then made that migration. So that's done. So basically all that's left is to actually do the change where we point to the new site as the main site. want to make sure that it doesn't break things. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do that before we held elections and then like find out that, oh yeah, something broke. So, you know, I think we're going to be able to do that in the next quarter. As far as like, why don't we just hire somebody? Okay, who's going to manage that person? Who's going to tell them what to do? I mean, we have a lot of people that, you know, can work on these things. We allocated money last year because somebody had said, why don't we just like spend some money and do something? So we allocated money, we put somebody in charge, and they didn't even produce a plan. So the link between somebody stating we should do this and something actually being done is a lot of hand waving that like I haven't seen anybody have any firm plans on what exactly they're planning to do. So that's kind of where we are. The intent is that the Communications Directorate runs the sort of things that have to do with news and information, that each of the directorates have some degree of control over their areas on the web, and that we follow certain across the board content standards. So, you know, we don't just let it's not like Wikipedia where like anybody can go in and sort of like, well, I think it should be this, so I'm just going to change it. No, we're not going to run that way. So yes, we are allowed to hire help, but I haven't seen a plan for what would such help actually do.
Excellent. Dennis, you want to take over for the communications part since it's kind of just back to back here?
Sure thing. So as you know, Gordon said, we, the Communications Directorate, helps manage some of the website content. We mainly work on news posts, so things you see on the front page, newsletter posts, and some other updates, things like officers page and whatnot. We also help some of the directorates if they have updates and don't necessarily have the tech skill or whatever to get in there and update the website. We handle the newsletters. Those have been going out pretty frequently, and I'll let Andrew is one of our assistant communication directors if you want to chime in real quick about the newsletter and if there's anything you want to plug about that.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Yeah, so we've been trying to get the newsletters out once a quarter and trying to make them informational, so getting more, you know, regional updates from regional reps, you know, what are they kind of up to, as well as updates from the directorate, so as a communication tool. But we're also looking for content from the membership, you know, as well. So if you're interested in contributing anything, we'll be seeing more of that. So if you're interested in contributing anything, you could email, you know, myself, and you know, if you're interested in you know, any kind of contributions or any ideas, we're always looking for ideas as well. You know, just reach out and we'd be happy to implement them.
Thanks. Another thing we've noticed lately is we're getting a lot of reports that the newsletters are going to people's spam boxes. So, you know, one mitigation effort is, you know, check your email filters and make sure you're setting, you know, anything from @bjcp.org to not go to spam, unless you want us to go to spam. So, you know, if you want our emails, you should probably try to make sure they don't bounce. We're also looking at some ways to try to mitigate that with how we send the newsletters, so that we're not getting flagged by services as spam. Another area our directorate runs is the badges, and we're happy that after some issues with badges last year, we took some time to research and switch vendors, and we're up and running with a new vendor. So we think our backlog from badges that were not shipped in 2019 is resolved. We've reached out to anybody who tried to order a badge in 2019 to ask if they have not gotten it to reorder. And we had about 250 orders come back in from that email. Those have all shipped out, and we've shipped out everything that has been ordered up until the last few weeks in 2020. So those are back up. So if you need a new badge, you can access that link on the website to log into the portal and order a new badge. We typically ship those about monthly. We send a bulk order over to the vendor. It's not an automated process. So we have to do some processing to clean up files and send that over. So those are going well. Again, we also manage the Bjcp has a Facebook presence. That's kind of turned into one of our main communication areas for members. And, you know, we moderate that. We're working with the new website and James on the IT side to eventually have a new forum for members that'll be a members only space to communicate. The Facebook group is open to anybody who wants to join that has a Bjcp interest, because there's sometimes good conversations about, you know, how do I score well on the exam I'm studying, tips and tricks and things like that. So we're conscious of.
So Dennis.
Yep.
We've got specifically to that. One of your question, a guy was kind of capital letter, or he typed in caps. I think he's from Utah. He was very concerned about the Facebook page being public because his bosses can see him talking about alcohol. And he was wondering why, for the love of God, do we have a public page when you have to be a member to be in the Bgcp to begin with?
Yeah, you know, it's just one avenue for people to communicate about the Bjcp, and I think, you know, because of you know, the transition to the new website and the old forum, you know, we used to have an old forum. It still exists. It gets very little activity now. It's an old school forum, and we're looking at ways to address that if a member wants to communicate in a private place. But, you know, social media tends to be more public than other forms of communication. So currently we still keep it public, so people, if they have, you have to get permission to post on the Facebook page, so we don't get spammed, but it's still public for people if they want to view as a resource about the Bjcp.
Cool. You good, Dennis?
Yeah, that's good. Any questions? Feel free to contact me, and we'll get it sorted out.
Cool. Thanks, man. Okay, Gordo, back to you because the exam people aren't here. We don't need to run down to the exam overview. There were some really good questions that came in, so and they're more general ones, so you should be able to answer. And if not, you can just push them, just blame Sarah, I think. Right. So the first one is they're saying, has there been any consideration by the Bgcp to place greater emphasis on judging experience points, e.g. non-judging points, to achieve higher rank than just judging points?
Well, you can use non-judging points for half of the contribution to rank, but you know, there's been no consideration in changing that. I don't know. The organization has always had a strong practical component, and unless you're actually being a judge, not really sure what sort of book knowledge will get you if you can't actually do that job. So I think as a judge organization, we continue to require, like, you get at least half your points from actually judging. Use the skill. So I guess the answer to that is no.
Very good. A few COVID questions that I'm just going to wrap into one. Is there consideration of being options for taking the written exam online?
I think they are I mean, I had posed this question to exam as well. Is there like any sort of thing we can do? I think logistically the problem would be spinning up something that could be done in a way that wouldn't be open to widespread fraud. Would sort of take longer than we think. You know, it would be just to sort of ride this out. So we don't have any plans to do that I know of, but I've had the same question.
Super. Internationally, they pick a language. It doesn't matter. They try to sign up for exam. There's a year wait just because that's what it is. It's really tough for them to get people to sign up for the exam a year away and to keep people interested. Is there something that can be done to remove these barriers? Meaning, how can they get more exams in their language? What's the easiest way for them to help that?
Well, I mean, we do give exams, and if I recall correctly, exams given in other countries are rarely full. So, you know, use the ones that we have available first. I think a large, I don't know what the statistics are. See if she has it in. You know, it seems like at least a third, maybe a half, up to exams are outside the U.S. So we do have a lot of exams out there. I mean, we would like to see the exams that are given actually be fully subscribed. You know, if the goal is to, you know, have everybody have a personal exam given at their house, I think that's an unrealistic expectation. You know, they are grouped, and if we're sort of starting up in a new area, I think, you know, we can support that. We don't impose any quotas other than the number of exams that can go through the available graders we have. So I don't know what examinees could do other than actually show up to the exams that are given in areas if you want to take one.
Super. Continuing on that, can there be exceptions made for certified judges in non-English speaking countries to help grade where graders are sparse or scarce in the language of the exams?
I think we want to get away from using certified graders. It's something that we had done in the past, but I think we would prefer to have exams translated and have national level graders to be able to do that. That's been our tradition, and I think that's what we want to continue to do. I mean, how would I don't know how a certified level grader gets to evaluate whether somebody is a master level. I mean, if you want to become a black belt in karate, I mean, you don't have like a yellow belt give the test.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Continuing, for people that score over an 80 just on the tasting, but not a national yet because they don't have the points or they don't have the written, would they be considered to be able to grade tasting exams?
I think that's the same question you just asked.
Well, they have the score, the tasting score, and they're asking about judging or grading the tasting exams.
Right, but if they don't have the experience, I think we want to have.
Well, let's say they have the experience. Let's say they have the points, but they don't have the score, right? So they do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean the exam. the exam program is able to grant waivers to people to become graders, but especially now, we have more graders than we know what to do with because we're not giving exams. So we've got plenty of graders. People aren't holding exams, and that's not like something that we're doing. We're not preventing people from holding exams or holding competitions. Or, you know, it's up to what people are able to accomplish in their local venue safely. So bringing in a bunch of new graders doesn't really do anything for us now. So we're not really looking at that because we don't need it.
Sure. The last one is about the exam program in general. So I'm just going to sum this up because this is a very long, angry email. Basically, the exam people that are in the exam directorate, like the people that grade or the directors and such, they get credit for grading the exams. They get paid money for grading the exams, and they're not required to do any other work to progress in rank. But every other person is required to grade if they want to progress in rank. How is that so?
I don't think the premise of the question is correct.
Well, so the premise of the question is, in order to progress in rank, why are you required to be a part of the exam directorate, e.g., or have anything to do with all basic? Why do they have to grade exams in order to progress in rank?
People don't have to grade exams. The only place where that comes in is at the grandmaster level. You don't, to go from recognized to certified, you don't have to grade exams. To go from certified to national, you don't have to grade exams. To go from national to master, you don't have to grade exams. Grading exams is part of a service requirement because we want to incentivize people that are volunteering for the Bjcp to do the work that needs to be done. And we are fundamentally a certification organization. So grading exams is, you know, our primary reason for existing.
Agreed, but you having just said that we have way too many graders and throwing more graders is going to be an issue. What we don't have is more people in the other directorates to be able to help. So taking exactly what you said, how can we require people to move up in rank to be able to be part of one directorate when we have so much need in the other directorates? Right? People only have so much time.
Again, the only place where grading comes into is at grandmaster level, and you know, the bulk of the membership isn't there, so I don't know why we would focus our effort on like something that is like this minuscule part of the organization. It's part of the service requirement. So I don't think we want to say that grading isn't important to us, because I mean, we just had questions that said, why isn't grading more important? So you can't both argue that, gee, we really need to have more graders, and then other is like, yeah, but we shouldn't actually have to grade. So either grading is important or it isn't important. So I'm on sort of the side that grading is important.
Absolutely, grading is important, but this is what you're not getting. People only have so much time. And if you're saying the most important thing is grading, but the other part is not.
Yeah, but I don't understand where the question's coming from when it regards to like advancing in rank, when it only affects like the very highest number of ranks. So it's not.
Well, you know people like they want to get as many marks as on their black belt as they possibly can. And when they see
Really?
something unfair, they speak up.
Okay.
Noted.
Mhm.
Where are we at? Bruce, you want to do the education stuff? I think Bruce had a stroke.
Yeah, I am. I'm admitting somebody at the same time. I'm trying to unmute myself. Okay, let me share my screen. All right, I trust everybody can see that now.
Do it.
Good. Okay, cool. All right, I will simply just say good day to everybody. So thank you for taking the time to attend today. I kind of want to share some of our 2020 objectives with everybody first, as I know we've been getting a couple of questions, not just through this forum, but then also throughout the year on what we're planning on doing given what's going on with the pandemic, and I think this will address some of that. So we have a couple focus areas this year. Every year we have focus areas, but this year we've adjusted them a little bit given what's going on. So we're going to continue to grow sensory training offerings. This is something that I saw as a need when I became education director was we need to have some kind of additional sensory training offerings, not necessarily from the Bjcp itself, but something that's a kit that individuals could take and then go and they could exercise with themselves or with a group of people locally. Again, our objective is to empower local judges to help grow their areas, grow their locations. So we're trying to continue that effort. We're also trying to build out self-paced training on the learning management system that we have, our Moodle site, the training.bgcp.org. It's been a little bit slower than I had hoped. We're trying to come up with the right type of education. Again, it's not necessarily just beer education, but it's educating judges on how to properly critique. So what does the individual need to know about a beer, a mead, or a cider in order to properly critique it? So that is another area we are focusing on. The other area we're going to look at now is, as you can see here now, virtual offerings. The tools are available. So, how do we play in this space? Obviously, we have a global membership. So, how do we take these opportunities that we have and put together some kind of good offerings, some good high quality offerings to the membership? And then also we need to maintain our continuity. We have a mead judge training and study program, as well as a beer judge training and study program that's out on the dev site. We need to include a cider judge one as well. Again, these are outlines on how an individual could go ahead and study for the exams, as well as outline for an individual who wishes to host training opportunities locally and run the program there.
Bruce, on that cider thing, there was that question that we got about the PDF. You just want to address that quick?
Yeah, I can. We did get into having worn dual hats for a little bit of time there. I was also the chair for the cider judge program startup. We have gone ahead and the cider study guide is prepared with the current approach, which is that we're going to maintain the guides out on the website as individual pages. That's the current direction. We're evaluating different types of plugins or different opportunities where an individual could be able to at least export that information to a PDF and then go ahead and print it themselves. Just haven't been able to pull the trigger on that one yet, but we are aware that it is something that that folks want. It's just a matter of how we properly execute it and keep it so it's not something that's going to be a maintenance nightmare for somebody. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. The Bgcp website, dev or otherwise, we're working on a HOP sensory training. I've alluded to this in some of our communications. The bottom line of it is that's the recipe there for how we want to kind of execute it. The question is we just got to put instructions around it so everybody doesn't have issues when they try to do it at home, run into questions, and then cause a flurry of unneeded emails and activity. So working on that. Describing,
Also, the working on the third party kit with go ahead with the hop sensory. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that we don't talk about is all the failures that we've encountered along the way that we've done. And one was we did look at a couple of different other hop sensory kit offerings. One did not meet our standards at all whatsoever. Kristen did find a second one now that's out there for Aroma. We are trying to work to get that to be an offering as well too. So
it's the logistics that it's a fantastic kit. It's a professional kit. Getting the logistics where we don't have to try to physically pack things and ship them is what's going to be required.
Yes.
And and everything was going fine until COVID hit, and then we're going to go back at it after that because they're down to minimal staff now, so they couldn't do what we needed. Before they said they could, but for now they can't.
Yep, exactly. So so that is one of them. Let's see here. What else do I got? Describing beer using malt and hop training wheels. We did release the malt training wheel, sensory wheel earlier this year already, the malt training. That is something that took a few years to put together. We tried numerous different variations with different suppliers to try to kit up the grains and malts and send them out to people. That didn't work. We tried it testing out the offering on a couple of different venues, learned a lot from all those, and we finally got to a point where we said, you know what, now I think we're pretty confident we can release the malt one. And then the hop one will fall along the same lines that we had of the things we learned from malt. So we'll be able to expedite that one as well too. We also want to be able to put something together using both of those wheels though to help another area of need, which is being able to articulate what one is experiencing. I know I've done a couple of talks at NHCs, and people kind of expect when we do these sensory discussions and talkings that they expect to have a vocabulary installed in their head or to be able to come walking away with, yep, that's how I need to articulate things when I'm actually sampling a beer, a mead, or a cider. And that's not the case. It's a learned experience. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to help break down the barriers of how people can properly articulate not only what they're perceiving, but also what level they're perceiving it at. So not only were you going to use those malt and hop training wheels for just using for talking to just particular malts and hops and how they can impact a beer, but we're also going to try to use them for when people are trying to learn the vocabulary and actually start filling out a score sheet and be able to fill out score sheets better. So that will be coming this year as well too. We got the Zoom technology or virtual meetings, so we're going to look and see how we can conduct these with everybody. The same with the cider judge training study program. We'll get that out, but then I would also like to maybe do a Zoom or something of that effect to kind of go over a one-on-one with people who are interested in running these programs locally on how they can kind of conduct them as well too. And then we've got some regular stuff we got to do, which is just some menu revamping on the Bgcp website. Go a little bit more in depth with the training portal. We want to get some self-paced courses out there pertaining to judging. We need to get some good quality content available to us from professional sources. You know, we just can't take popular opinions or current trends. We want to get actual citable type material that we can use and build content off of. We want to control the amount of content we create, because the more content we actually physically create, it then becomes something that has to be maintained. And then that can kind of snowball, and we don't have as a volunteer organization, we don't necessarily have the abilities or the capabilities to consistently maintain stuff that has been developed over and over the years. So we need to kind of keep an eye on how we approach this. We also want to get into stuff when it comes to pertaining to new styles. We see a flurry of activity out on the social media sites when a new style comes out or is discussed or talked about and how to perceive or what's a good this, that, whatever. It would probably be a good help for us to kind of go ahead and put something out there first, kind of talk to it a little bit, and then record it so that people can go back and reference it. Hey, what a concept. We're going to update the theme. Right now, it's a little busy out there on the training portal site. So we've got a test site we're working with right now to kind of streamline a couple of things. And then we're also going to work with James to get just regular updates and upgrades for that site, as well as the vendor goes ahead and produces revisions. The final slide I'm going to talk about is those virtual opportunities. We want to do some kind of lecture series for existing beer styles potentially. We're going to look at try to get industry professionals to come on and do guest presentations as well. The whole idea there is to broadcast into the membership for future use. Again, record them. We can put those materials, a link to the recording, and then put together a little quiz out on the LMS site, and then people could go ahead and view that, and then they could go ahead and take a quiz and earn some EDT point for it. So that is the conclusion of my my slides. Any other questions we need to address here, Kristen?
Just the fact that we're kind of tooling around with score sheets.
Yeah.
And trying to make them more functional and to agree. Current language being like the descriptive language being correct, the things that we're seeing wrong in beers are represented, and the amount of space and the format. Nothing official yet. Just playing around and see what we can get to make it more functional.
The other thing we should mention there too is we're also trying to. There's been a great increase, or there was a great increase, I should say, an interest in scanning score sheets. So we're trying to put additional items, include additional items that will assist with locations who are using the score sheets to be able to scan them and communicate to the entrant the better information with the format changes.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks, Bruce.
That's it, guys. Thank you.
One thing, hey, Kristen, one thing I'll say, there are several groups working on fillable PDF score sheets. So
Sure.
they're available out there if somebody wants to try them and use them. So you don't have to scan them. You can use your phone, tablet, PC, fill it out and just email it to the organizer, whether you're on site or virtual. So there's a lot of technology enhancements going on now for anybody that's interested.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, Gordon, we got a few questions, you and I, about the styles. Just, there's just a few things that people just really confused about in general. So if you just want, I'll just gonna put these to you. The difference between just a style and then a provisional style, people get very caught up in what is a provisional style versus making it an actual style and such. You want to discuss that for a second?
Well, I mean, a provisional style is just a style that is posted in between major updates of the style guidelines. It's a mechanism that we talked about putting out there so that if there's something changing and there's a high demand, we're able to respond between the big updates we do. Because there's a lot of overhead that goes into releasing a big update to the style guidelines. I mean, it ripples through so many parts of the program. It really affects exams, for instance. So we try to minimize the disruption on that. So, I mean, provisional styles are available for use. I mean, I think it pretty much says so on the website that there are ways for people to use them. So, I mean, they are styles.
Correct, they are styles. And the big issue is people making a huge deal between style versus being in the actual guidelines, right? And as you said, yeah, exactly right. The question about the local styles in general. Will local styles always be under local styles, or may at some point could they potentially get migrated into the regular styles?
They could. Depends on how widely they're made. I mean, the local styles was a compromise between. I mean, the choice is either leave a style out of the guidelines or sort of overinflate the relevance of a certain style. I mean, if you only see a certain style in a certain place and it's not exported, then why would other people be tested on that, for instance? So that was just a mechanism we came up with. I mean, I wouldn't read too much into that.
So I've gotten emails from New Zealand, basically every place that has grapes as wine as a part of their culture that also make beer, and they're asking about why is the grape ale labeled Italian grape, where basically it can be made anywhere with any variety of grape.
Sure, I agree with that. I mean, because when we added that as a provisional style, what you just said wasn't true. I mean, yes, I mean, it was true that people were able to do it, but, you know, there's a chicken and egg problem here. It's like we published it, then people learned about it, and then other people started making it, and they're like, well, you know, it's our style too. Yeah, I think that's a good example of something that as it get merged into the main style, that it like ceases to become a local style and becomes something that's done elsewhere. I mean, if you talk to the Italians, they have sort of more restrictions on what they consider to go into that style, and that's fine for what they do. But certainly people make them. I mean, I've had some wonderful ones in South America, and you know, it's certainly being made. It's certainly being made elsewhere. So yeah, so I think that covers several of the questions. The maybe it's a philosophical thing about like what the styles are for. When you know, we're putting these out there to assist people in running their competitions, to help keep all beers from being specialty beers, basically. So we're providing these tools to help people run competitions, and people try to read into this of like how we are trying to direct the craft beer industry, and that's not the intent at all. We're kind of following what people are doing and trying to make it easier for people to run competitions. It's not about promoting certain regions or discriminating against other regions. So people shouldn't try to read into that of, why doesn't our country have something? Well, that's not really what it's about.
So just then, now just a general kind of just overview of the next coming kind of changes, the small updates that we're doing.
Yeah. So the 2015 guidelines was, you know, a big lift. That was equivalent to the update done in 2004, where there was some major changes. And you know, we've collected some errata, you know, some issues that people had in actually using some of these changes. And so mostly what this forthcoming update is going to be equivalent to like the 2008 update, in that you know, we're making some technical changes to clarify some areas where people had confusions, and we'll probably continue to use provisional styles as a way to sort of test out some new ideas before putting things into the next major release of the guidelines. So, you know, a lot of this came through things that Dennis had collected from people who would pose questions about how do you interpret, you know, how do you actually use the guidelines in practice. So he's been pretty helpful in pointing out the areas where there's some confusion in the guidelines, and we're just kind of trying to untangle that. People try to read a lot of intent into the guidelines when we just wish people would just read the plain language. You know, if you can't tell what we meant from reading it, you're probably trying too hard. So we're just trying to make it easier for people to understand. And you know, there is research and updates that come out, and as we learn more, we try to make them as correct as they can be.
Yeah, at the time. And we always have to update the examples and such too, because sometimes things are made and sometimes things stop being made, right? I mean, it's just the way it goes.
Of course. I mean, the examples are just there's a study aid, really. I wouldn't. What we care about most is the basic sensory description of the style, because that's what you'll use in a competition, and that's what you'll be tested upon on the exam. So a lot of people get hung up on the commercial examples or the actual name or how they're grouped. And those are kind of
that's a good point, Gordon. How they're grouped. Like I was saying at the beginning, people confuse the guidelines and the competitions. The grouping, explain why people get caught up on the how we group things versus how competitions can and should. What is the BGCP's opinion on a competition grouping things?
Well, I think I say it in about 8 different places in the guidelines, is that you don't have to organize a competition to judge things according to the categories we have. You can take individual styles and group them however you like. That's completely up to you. You know, some competitions choose to go by the categories in the guidelines, and then they're surprised they wind up with like 400 IPAs and like, you know, 3 lagers. So
and 1 sour beer, yeah.
Yeah. So you know, and as different trends go, you know, the anecdotal story is, yeah, we kind of wrote up a provisional style for brewed IPA, which died before like it was published because, you know, some of
we held off on it on purpose.
Well, right, and
because it was hot for like 3 months, then they disappeared completely.
Yeah, it's like black IPA, right? Everybody, that was the hot topic of the time. Of you got to put out the guidelines, you got to put it out, and like now you never see them anymore. So yes, we would like to have a way for the faddish things to have a standardized description where they could be judged in a competition without having to sort of completely retool how we go about testing people. Because you know, that part kind of is a competition management problem, and that's not really the primary purpose of the organization. We want people to have, we want people to be able to run competitions to a certain set of standards, but still be able to make their own sort of local choices as to how they want that experience to go. We just want it to be fair and consistent and, you know, worthy of our, you know, our name being associated with it, but we don't actually execute these things ourselves. So we try to share best practices about what works and recommendations, but we actually have relatively few formal rules. So for styles, yeah, grouping of the styles. When people say they want to help with the style guidelines, usually what that means is they want to choose how the groupings are done, not like they want to write the sensory descriptions. So to me, the sensory descriptions are the most important piece because that's what is really needed when you're a judge. How they're grouped, I mean, you can group them however you want for your competition. We tried to group them in ways that if you had beers of those styles together, they would have a similar sensory impact. So my primary concern there is that you're not unnecessarily fatiguing the judges if you choose to judge the beers in those categories.
I think that's about it, guys. It's been about an hour and a half now. Gordon, you good with the styles, right? I mean, that's pretty much a good overview of what's coming up and what we're doing.
Yeah, mostly it's kind of bug fixes from the last one. We're not looking at really sort of adding anything. There might be a few technical changes, and you know, we have to change the names of a few things. But I think we'll continue to use the provisional styles, and they're available for use. We still have a brewed IPA guideline completely written, but I haven't seen one of them in a competition or in a bar in a long time, so I'm not sure of the point.
They don't sell.
Well, yeah.
Okay then, guys. I think that's. You got more, Gordon? You still talking?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I don't know if we want to handle any of the questions coming out of the chat or anything else, but as part of what some other people have commented about, like during the financial review, there was some talk about like what AHA related things are going on. So maybe just sort of a brief update. The AHA has undergone like some serious life changes as an organization. They've like whacked at least half their staff. And some of the things we had set up with them certainly are impacted as well. Like they were doing some exam related things for us, scanning exams so that we could electronically grade them. And they stopped doing that. They were paying money for greater incentives and as related to the homebrew competition, and they've stopped that. The Bgcp still has a greater incentive program, but it's no longer tied to, I mean, the HA has basically withdrawn matching funds. And clearly, since we didn't have a conference, we were always kind of piggybacking on their large gathering so we could have our meetings. I mean, it's still the intention to go back and do that, but you know, if they don't have a competition, then we don't have a place to go do that. So yeah, I think we're looking as an organization into doing more of these alternate venues, as everybody is doing video conferencing nowadays for things. So we're doing that as well, and I think Bruce has some good plans for bringing that out in general. So we are looking to be able to do more virtual things, and you know, we'll have announcements of that when they're ready to go.
Yeah, specifically with the education stuff, Bruce and I are working on some like Zoom things, especially taste-alongs and things like that, to get people, just to keep people interested and active.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful. I'm eager to see that working. And there's a lot of other people out there who are like affiliated with the Bgcp, members who are doing their own thing, and you know, various of us have, you know, participated in those kind of forums just to kind of sort of keep keep people interested and active, and it's a good time for people to be building their skills and learning, and you know, we will get through this. We've you know, if we can get through the Black Death, we can get through this. So you know,
I've got one more quick point, Gordon.
Yeah, sure.
One more quick point about the style guidelines. These aren't just put together by just two people. They're put together. The thoughts are down. We write these big descriptions. We pare them down. We pass them around the style committee. We think, is this something? Is it going to last? We beat them to death. Then we send them out to our professional friends that are either professional brewers, in the actual industry. Make sure that we are correct as much as we can be. But these are not an open forum things. It's not like a town hall meeting where everybody throws everything together and all of a sudden your horse turns into a camel. So this is not just these. It's a very, very big deal when we start adding styles and we start doing major additions to styles. It's not just, oh, by the way, Kristen and Gordon decided that this was going to go. I mean, this goes through an awful lot of people's hands.
Yeah, there's, you know, probably 50 plus people involved in the last major iteration, and you know, for all the people that go through and in good faith put work into it. I mean, really, we discover a lot of things when we actually take these things out and use them for real. So you know, it's one thing I miss about competitions, because I actually see who is involved in using these and what issues they're having, and that points to areas that we need to clarify or we might need to resolve, because it's easy for a lot of people to sort of talk themselves into believing things the guidelines don't actually say. So when we see that sort of persisting, we try to have those clarified.
I'd like to second a little thing what Kristen kind of said before too, and it just doesn't go towards just the style guidelines. That goes towards a lot of the things the organization does. I know with education stuff, we get a lot of things submitted to us. Cider, when we were doing cider program, you know, these things aren't done in a vacuum. We try to do the most thorough due diligence on these things as possible, and get different industry weigh-ins, and just make sure that it's thoroughly addressed before we publish it. So I know sometimes with education stuff, we've had some people submit some things and they feel a little goofy or weird because they feel like when they're getting feedback on how things are provided to us, that we've adjusted a couple of things here and there, and it's nothing personal. It's just that we have a bunch of experience in how things come into us, and we want to make sure that we get it right, so things are always subject to review.
But you know,
I think that's it, guys. Anything else, Gordon?
We need to get the things out and used, and understand that you know, we'll learn from it, and we'll make updates in the future.
That too.
But it can't be something that chases every shiny object, or people would never be able to study for an exam.
True.
So you know, there has to be some consistency for some period of time before we make a change that can have a huge amount of impact. So yeah, thanks guys for putting this together. You know, we're in our sort of brave new world of lockdowns, and you know, trying to stay in touch this way. I kind of you know, I miss the discussions and things that we have when we get together at these big events. So it's good for us all to, you know, maintain some social contact here. Everybody keeps safe. Pay attention to you know, your local guidelines wherever you live. It's a pandemic, but the conditions vary from place to place. So the Bjcp doesn't take any sort of stance other than listen to the people who are responsible for this thing in your area, and don't do anything that's going to put the judges at risk. We're all going to be a little wary, even like when we're through this, and maybe we're learning some things along the way. Maybe we pick up some other things that we can do. We'll see what works, and we'll try to advance those. So appreciate everybody for attending, and hope to see you all again.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay safe.
Wear a mask.
Yes.
Yes, wear a mask. Chris, wear a bag.
Wear 2 bags, just in case.
Yes, just in case.
You can kill the recording now, Bruce.
So stopped.